Hi, good afternoon. I am Rose Laplana, your reporter for today. The topic that was given to me is about Republic Act number 10533, or the Implementing Rules and Regulations of the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. Pursuant to Section 16 of Republic Act number 10533, entitled An Act Enhancing the Philippine Basic Education System by Strengthening its Curriculum and Increasing the Number of Years for Basic Education, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, otherwise known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, approved on May 15, 2013, and which took effect on June 8, 2013, the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority hereby issue the following rules and regulations to implement the provisions of the Act. Rule number 1, General Provisions. Under Section 1 is the title. These rules and regulations should be referred to as the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or the IRR, of the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, or the Republic Act number 10533. Section 2 is about the scope and application. The provisions of this IRR should primarily apply to all public and private basic educational institutions and learning centers. This IRR shall also apply to higher education institutions, technical vocational institutions, duly recognized organizations acting as teacher education institutions and foundation. Next is Section 3, Declaration of Policy. This IRR shall be interpreted in light of the Declaration of Policy found in Section 2 of the Act. Section 4, Definition of Terms. For purposes of the IRR, the following terms shall mean or be understood as follows. First one is Act. An act refers to Republic Act number 10533, entitled An Act Enhancing the Philippine Basic Education System by Strengthening its Curriculum and Increasing the Number of Years for Basic Education, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, otherwise known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. Learning Center refers to a physical space to house learning resources and facilities of a learning program for out-of-school youth and adults. Next one, Learners, refers to a pupil or student or to a learner in the alternative learning system. Mother tongue language or first language refers to the language or languages first learned by a child, which he/she identifies with, is identified as a native language user of by others, which he/she knows best or uses most. Lastly is the non-DepEd public school. Refers to a public school offering basic education operated by an agency of the national government other than the DepEd or by a local government unit. Next is Section 5, Basic Education. Pursuant to Section 3 of the Act, basic education is intended to meet basic learning needs, which provides the foundation on which subsequent learning can be based. It encompasses kindergarten, elementary, and secondary education, as well as alternative learning systems for out-of-school learners and those with special needs under Section 8 of this IRR. Section 6 is about Enhanced Basic Education Program. For purposes of this IRR and pursuant to Section 4 of the Act, the Enhanced Basic Education Program encompasses at least 1 year of kindergarten education, 6 years of elementary education, and 6 years of secondary education in that sequence. Secondary education includes 4 years of junior high school and 2 years of senior high school education. The Enhanced Basic Education Program may likewise be delivered through the alternative learning system. Yan, so, yung kindergarten education, ito yung first stage of compulsory and mandatory formal education, which consists of 1 year of preparatory education for children at least 5 years old as a prerequisite for grade 1. Kung natatandaan nyo, dati, hindi naman tayo required mag-kinder. Siguro meron pa rin sa atin na hindi nakapag-kinder then nag-jump na agad sa grade 1. Dati, pinapayagan yun. Kaso ngayon nga, dahil sa enhanced basic education, it is mandatory na ipasok yung mga bata sa kindergarten bago sila makapag-grade 1. Next one is the elementary education. This refers to the second stage of compulsory basic education, which is composed of 6 years. The entrant of age to this level is typically 6 years old. So, alam na natin yon. Next is about the secondary education. This refers to the third stage of compulsory basic education. It consists of 4 years of junior high school education and 2 years of senior high school education. The entrance age to the junior and senior high school levels are typically 12 and 16 years old respectively. Kung dati yung secondary education natin, naabutan pa tayo dun sa old curriculum, from first year to fourth year high school lang. Ngayon, meron na silang 4 years for junior high school and 2 years for senior high school bago sila mag-college or sa tertiary. The DepEd may allow private educational institutions flexibility in adopting the program provided that they comply with the DepEd prescribed minimum standard consistent with the Act. Next is Section 7, Compulsory Basic Education. It should be compulsory for every parent or guardian or other persons having custody of a child to enroll such child in basic education, irrespective of learning the delivery modes and system, until its completion, as provided for by existing laws, rules, and regulations. So, yun nga, compulsory na ipasok tayo ng ating mga magulang sa basic education. Next is Section 8, Inclusiveness of Enhanced Basic Education. In furtherance of Section 3 of the Act, inclusiveness of enhanced basic education shall mean the implementation of programs designed to address the physical, intellectual, psychosocial, and cultural needs of learners, which shall include but shall not be limited to the following. First one is the programs for the gifted and talented. These shall refer to the comprehensive programs for the gifted and talented learners in all levels of basic education. Next, programs for learners with disabilities. These shall refer to the comprehensive programs designed for learners with disabilities, which may be home, school, center, or community-based. Next is Madrasa program. This shall refer to the comprehensive program using the Madrasa curriculum prescribed by the DepEd in coordination with the Commission on Muslim Filipinos for Muslim learners in public and private schools. Next is the Indigenous People Education Program. This shall refer to the program that supports education initiatives undertaken through formal, non-formal, and informal modalities with emphasis on any of, but not limited to, the key areas of indigenous knowledge systems and practices and community history, indigenous languages, indigenous learning system, and community life cycle-based curriculum and assessment. Next is the programs for learners under difficult circumstances. This shall refer to the timely and responsive programs for learners under difficult circumstances, such as, but not limited to, geographic isolation, chronic illness, displacement due to armed conflict, urban resettlement or disasters, child abuse, and child labor practices.
Section 9
Next
is about
is Section 9,
which is
Acceleration
the
of learners in public and private
acceleration of
basic
learners in
educational
public and
institutions
private
shall be
basic
allowed,
educational
consistent with DepEd
institutions
rules and
shall be allowed.
regulations. Lastly is the Section 10, which is the Basic Education Curriculum Development. In the development of the basic education curriculum, the DepEd should be guided by the following. The first one is the formulation and design. Pursuant to the Section 5 of the Act, the DepEd shall formulate the design and details of the enhanced basic education curriculum. Next is the standards and principles. The DepEd shall adhere to the following standards and principles when appropriate in developing the enhanced basic education curriculum. So first one, the curriculum should be learner-centered, inclusive, and developmentally appropriate. Next is the curriculum should be relevant, responsive, and research-based. Next, the curriculum should be gender and culture sensitive. Next one is the curriculum should be contextualized and global. The curriculum shall use pedagogical approaches that are constructivist, inquiry-based, reflective, collaborative, and integrative. Next is the production of development on materials. The production and development of locally produced teaching and learning materials should be encouraged. The approval of these materials shall be devolved to the regional and division education unit in accordance with national policies and standards. Next one is the medium of teaching and learning. Pursuant to sections 4 and 5 of the Act, basic education shall be delivered in languages understood by the learners, as language plays a strategic role in shaping the formative years of learners. Last one is the stakeholder participation. To achieve an enhanced and responsive basic education curriculum, the DepEd should undertake consultations with other national government agencies and other stakeholders, including but not limited to the Department of Labor and Employment or the DOLE, the Professional Regulation and Commission (PRC), private and public schools, associations, national student organizations, national teacher organizations, parents teachers associations, chambers of commerce, and other industry associations on matters affecting the concerned stakeholders.
My next topic is about Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act or the Republic Act No. 10931. An act promoting universal access to quality tertiary education by providing for free tuition and other school fees in state universities and colleges, local universities and colleges, and state-run technical vocational institutions, establishing the tertiary education subsidy and student loan program, strengthening the unified student financial assistance systems for tertiary education. What are the salient points of the IRR? Who can benefit from the free tuition law and who are disqualified from it? First one is the free tuition for all required classes during the semester. These classes must be part of the curriculum and are essential in obtaining a degree. Approved petition classes are covered. 2. But review or enhancement classes are not covered. The free tuition law also covers the fees of Filipino learners enrolled in any TESDA registered TVET program. Next one is the free miscellaneous and other school fees. The law covers payment for fees for the use of libraries, computers and laboratories, school identification cards, athletics admissions, development, guidance services, handbook, entrance, registration, medical and dental services, and cultural activities. Should you wish to have another copy of your school identification card, library identification card, and student handbook, you will have to pay extra. Next one is the affirmative action programs for minorities. The law requires SUCs, LUCs, and TVET program providers to craft programs to make it easier for disadvantaged students to avail of the free tuition law. They may include students who are LUMAD, Muslims, indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, and students from public high school and depressed areas. Number 4 is opt-out mechanism. Students with the financial capacity can volunteer to opt out of the free higher education provisions, SUCs, and TVET. Providers are therefore required to create a system that would enable students to do so. Students must decide to opt out of the subsidy during the enrollment period of each semester. They will be required to submit a waiver duly notarized by the institution. The decision is considered final and irrevocable for that particular semester. Students are allowed to change their decision in the next semesters. Number 5 is student voluntary contribution mechanism. The law also allows financially able students to avail of the free higher education provisions but also contribute a specific amount of the higher education institution. SUCs, LUCs, and TVET providers are required to create a proper system so students can make voluntary contributions for their education. Next is number 6, tertiary education subsidies. Students and learners may apply to get subsidies to help pay for tuition and fees in private institutions. Under TEST, they may also apply for subsidies to get allowances for books, supplies, transportation, room and board costs, and other expenses. A student with disability will also be given a separate set of allowance. Students whose programs require a professional license or certification will also be given money to fund their application for the first time. Students and learners, however, must first qualify under the existing admission and retention requirements or other screening and assessment procedures required by the program. And lastly, the Student Loan Program for Tertiary Education. The Free Tuition Law (IRR) also allows enrolled students to avail of an education loan. The UNIFAST Board shall implement the loan program through partner banks or similar institutions. You cannot avail of the free tuition and fees in SUCs and LUCs if, first, you already have a bachelor's degree or a comparable undergraduate degree from any public or private. You failed to comply with the admission or retention policies of the SUC or LUC, leading to your disqualification to enroll. Next one is you failed to complete your degree within a year after the period prescribed for your